Tyler here with e-bike commuting. Today we're going to walk through the Mokwheel Basalt e-bike. This e-bike I've had for about the past month. I've been riding it quite a lot. So going to walk through the things that I really like about it and a few areas where it falls short. So let's get to it. So the biggest thing that stands out about the Mokwheel Basalt is that it has a 750 watt rear hub motor that has 90 Newton meters of torque. This is a very powerful motor, and that definitely comes through when you ride it. It's got a really good acceleration. One thing I put all e-bikes through that I test is a cadence versus speed test. This basically looks at what cadence do you need to pedal to maintain a certain speed. So when it comes to the Basalt, the cadence was very reasonable to hit those higher speeds that they advertised. So to maintain a 15 mile per hour speed, the cadence was a reasonable 55. That was in the seventh gear. So you could easily drop down some gears and have a higher cadence if you prefer a higher cadence when pedaling. To hit the 20 miles per hour, I needed a cadence of about 70 RPM. So very, very reasonable and comfortable. And then to hit 28 miles per hour, which is the top speed that they advertise, I needed a cadence of 100 RPM. The bike is kind of wobbling back and forth as you really spin up to 100, so not something you're going to maintain for an extended period of time, but certainly something that on some straightaways, when I was trying to get home quickly from running some errands, it was nice to be able to hit 28 miles per hour. So a second thing with that motor is that torque I mentioned, the 90 Newton meters of torque. I generally group e-bikes into three categories when it comes to torque, and the Basalt is in that highest 60 plus Newton meters category, which means it's really good at climbing hills. So I take every e-bike out on a hill climb test. It's not super long, it's only a half mile with about 200 feet of climbing. It averages about 8.5% grade, but at the end it does kick up to about 11.5%. The Basalt handled it easily. I did it in 2.5 minutes with an average cadence of 70, which was super reasonable, very comfortable riding it up. Near the end, as I was getting closer to that 11.5% grade, I did have to downshift a bit, but all in all, it was super smooth. I powered right up. It wasn't even breathing hard by the end. So that motor and that torque makes this a great e-bike for climbing. It is a heavy e-bike, but it has so much power that it doesn't really matter. Now, I really like that it comes with a torque sensor. This means that as you pedal, it applies power versus a cadence sensor. So the torque sensors I find provide power a little more evenly and a little more naturally. So this did give it a pretty natural acceleration feel, which I did like. Another thing I liked about it is that it comes with a throttle. Not all e-bikes come with throttles, and that's super nice to have if you're quickly trying to get across an intersection or you're just accelerating from a stop sign on a hill. Now the throttle only provides power up to 20 miles per hour, and then after 20 miles per hour, it just relies on the torque sensor to get you up to 28 miles per hour. So you do have to pedal up to 28 miles per hour. Interestingly, this is billed as a Class 2 e-bike. There's a little sticker on there that says Class 2, but it has a throttle and that gives you power up to 28 miles per hour, which is really technically would be a Class 3 e-bike. I took it out in a variety of conditions, and the big fat tires really helped it handle everything I threw at it. I had it both on wet gravel as well as super dry, dusty gravel, wet pavement, dry pavement, and they just make it super stable and comfortable to ride. The gearing seemed great. It's a Shimano 7-speed. It's nice to have that gear range versus a single speed. And then the last thing I want to call out about the Basalt is that it has a big battery. It has an advertised range of 60 to 80 miles, and I didn't ride it that far, but certainly felt like it could get pretty close to that if you were riding on one of the lower pedal assist levels. Now let's talk through a few areas that the Basalt fell short. The first one was build quality. There were a few things that kind of just gave me pause as I was building it, as well as riding it. So the first was that the headset spacer is backwards. In the description, they said the bolts, as you're assembling, the bolts should be on the back side, but the picture had them on the front side. So there's just a discrepancy there in the instructions to the photos. It's not a huge deal, but it just shows a little bit of a lack of attention to detail. The other piece that I had an issue with was the crank arm. When you're building the bike, you assemble the pedals and you put all that together, and they give you all the tools for that. But when I was out riding it, I noticed that my foot kind of felt loose. I thought maybe I hadn't tightened the pedal correctly. Inspecting it, you can see the actual bolt that holds the crank arm in came loose.
This is actually very loose. This should not wobble back and forth. You can see it's actually come out a little bit. It's so loose I can manually screw it back in. I think it goes this way. So that's frustrating to say the least. Those were installed by them. I didn't put those on, and so I didn't think to check the tightness of those bolts. So yeah, it sucks because I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes from home, and didn't bring tools that would fit that. So I'm just gonna ride it, and hopefully it doesn't fall off.
So I'm sure somewhere in the manual it tells you to check every bolt before riding it the first time. And they sent you tools to build the bike, but they didn't actually send me a tool that would fit that size. So you definitely need to have your own tools and check every bolt when you assemble this bike. Another thing that happened a couple times while riding this bike was that the bike would randomly turn off, and on the display it would say battery air. Probably was only off for about 10 seconds. Not really sure what happened with that. It also happened the first time I took it out. I thought maybe the battery just wasn't in the compartment tight enough, but it hasn't happened since. So the other area that I thought it fell short was that it doesn't come with a bell. Instead, it has a horn. The horn, I'll play a sound right here of it.
A little obnoxious.
I just find the horn not to work effectively on multi-use bike paths and pedestrian paths. People associate horns with cars and angry motorists, and I find pedestrians, when I honk the horn at them, tend to just either yell at me or just give me a rude look. And then when it comes to the display, it's got a lot of great information. One thing it's missing is a remaining range estimation. It's got a little indicator on the left and right that show battery level, but I found that once it got down to about a third of a battery, it actually quickly went down from there. So I took it out and I had about a third of a battery left, at least from the indicator, that's when it appeared. But kind of surprisingly quickly, it then turned to red, and then it started to flash on and off like it was about to run out of batteries. So yeah, that's where like a range estimator would have been much better to say, oh, you only have 5 miles left. That's the Mokwheel Basalt. If you have experience riding this bike, share what it's like in the comments below, and happy riding. I'll see you out there.